So you talk about Jaws in 1975. Movies have become, I think, just synonymous with date nights, having fun with friends, seeing something that's really unique, and it's all different types of varieties. What's interesting though is over the years, the consumption of movies and any kind of content has changed primarily online. And then COVID hits and people don't want to be that close to people. Where are we in the world of theaters? Like, I'm seeing stuff that's being pushed and it says something like, exclusively in theaters, where they're really trying to get people in there. Is that world coming back? What's kind of like movie theater? What is the state of the movie theater world these days?
I would say in flux, just because it's not set. It's not, back in the day it was, okay, it's going to premiere a wide opening this weekend. It'll run in theaters for 12 weeks. And then 6 months later it comes out on videotape or DVD or, streaming. It's not like that anymore. Some movies don't go out into the theater. And that used to be a taboo thing, or something that just wasn't what you wanted your product to do, because there's a little tinge of, oh, your movie is less than if it's straight to video, right? But now that's a thing where you get an exclusive deal with Netflix. That's a prestigious thing. So it's different for every movie and every filmmaker as far as what works for them and how your movie can succeed and best find an audience. Yeah. I love the feeling of going to a theater and seeing someone else's movie and that I know nothing about. I try not to read up on movies because I want to be surprised.
Right.
I have friends and family members who tend to say, "Oh, I just saw this movie and da 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 da," and I cover my ears and I run out of the room because I don't want to know, right? And I love seeing my movies in theaters as well, too, just to have that collective experience with an audience where you make something that moves someone to clap or to smile or laugh or be horrified or cry. Just people, I want them to be moved and to learn something and to experience that with a collective group. That's harder and harder to do. And we have to be safe, worried about COVID, worried about, our lives have changed and it's different, but I'm hoping we get to that point, and I'm kind of banking on us getting to that point this summer where it's okay to go to a theater. I've gone to a theater recently. There were not a lot of people in the seats. I don't know if you guys have gone to any movies recently.
I thought that it was really awesome when you could, for like $200, you could just rent the whole theater and
they were doing
private. That was awesome.
Oh, you did that?
Well, we were invited by some friends of ours, and that was a really cool experience.
And that might be the route that I take, where I pre-sell tickets and I, know everyone who's going in, their status, and everyone feels safe because they know everyone. That might be the way we do this at least for the premiere.
It is interesting how you think about the, direct to video way back in the day, and that was like a no-no. It's like, oh, that's a garbage movie. Those are the ones that you would find at, in the bin at Walmart, if you will. And now that's, direct to streaming. A lot of it's the same concept, but it's just interesting to think about that.
What was the movie I was just asking you about, or I just watched, Zach, with The Rock? That was the Netflix. It was the biggest.
Red Notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are on something like that, but it's huge.
I think I think it was over 100 million, less than 200 million, something like that. But I mean, like big numbers. And what's interesting about that is in 2018, I think they spent $8 billion on producing content. I don't feel like I've heard that number again since. Yeah. So I think a lot of that stuff is starting to kind of come out. And what's interesting, I think, and maybe the Netflix creation of content versus just the normal, I don't know, the normal production companies creating this stuff is Netflix, I think, is okay with having some losses in there, kind of like a VC portfolio, if you will. Is the way that they're producing content very different than the way a normal motion picture production studio would be producing, where it's like, hey, we have 3 movies, these are the 3, they all have to work? Is there any insights on that, Butch?
I've just recently seen some numbers from, their streams. They hadn't released those numbers, like how many people were actually seeing these. We just hear Netflix just spent this much money this year on acquiring and producing content. Obviously, there's advertising that goes into that. I don't know the money behind that, but there's definitely quality content. It's not like there's any downgrade of content. There's some wonderful.
Is that, I'm just curious if has that changed your mindset, or just as that should move the needle just overall with production companies, because you have HBO Max, Amazon, Apple TV Plus, Netflix. You have all these streaming services that are just fighting, and it's all coming down to content creation. It's like, how has that changed the landscape of production companies?
I think it provides more opportunities. Back in the day, you were very limited as far as which movies get in theaters, which movies get acquired, where they're shown. And now with all these different streaming services, there's a home for everything. I made my second movie was Mother of a Day, which I crowdfunded on Indiegogo, made it with local 757 actors. And, we shot it for very little amount of money and put it in 3 theaters. And then it got acquired for distribution by Maverick Entertainment. And so it's available on all these different platforms. And, I can't disclose the deal we did, but for several years, money will be gathering. And at some point, it's going to make a lot more money than what it costs to make the movie.
So without going into the deep end of that, is it you get a royalty off that, or are you getting... So how does the purchase of that typically work?
So we got in advance, so I was able to distribute that to the cast and crew, and then they take out a marketing fee, right? So as every quarter, I get a profit or loss statement, and at one point the movie's going to make more than what it costs to market, and then we'll start seeing the income come in for that. But
it was interesting. I recently heard about how they did the Hangover trilogy. It was a three Hangovers, but movies. But though the main actors, they took an equity stake in the company of the franchise, as opposed to reduce the salary and the overall production cost. And wow, did that pay off well for them?
Yeah, and I'm working on that. I actually have Hollywood talent attached to 2 of my scripts, and some main people who've been in a lot of Hollywood productions, and they have agreed to read the script and liked the script so much that they put their name and said, okay, I'm attached to this role. And so as I look for funding for the movie, I can take out the pitch decks and say, hey, these people are willing to be in this movie without any money down and without any guarantee of what their salary is going to be. Obviously I'll have to close the deal when we get funding. But there are actors out there who, are not just in it for the money and want to make a quality movie. One of the scripts is a mysterious drama called Old Girl. It's about a girl who gets a year older every day. And it's just a very personal movie. I have a child with special needs, and we spend a lot of time in hospitals and with doctors. And, I just started keeping my eyes open to my surroundings and, came up with the idea of, what would happen if a child got a year older every day, and, they'd have to balance looking for a cure versus trying to live a normal life, and I think it's a very powerful story. and we have some name actors attached to that. That's the next one that I like to put out into the world.
I want to you talked about the shopping of scripts and then needing to get financing. How is that process? I mean, we talk here on this show about raising capital for businesses and putting your pitch deck together, and how many times you have to pitch before you get a second meeting, or even before you're lucky enough to even get a check. You're in the movie production area. I mean, it's like you're multiplying that by 2. Not only do you have to shop scripts around, and then once that happens, then you got to find financing for that. So is that 2 separate processes, 2 separate decks? I mean, I would love to hear more about that process.
Well, you know how I said that I don't wear hats, but I do. I wear a lot of hats. I'm the writer, so I write the script. I come up with the concept and write the script. And then I'm the producer. I'm deciding, okay, who do I want to get involved with this? Who do I think I have a chance to getting? You guys have probably heard of IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. There is a IMDb Pro, which is a paid version. You can pay a monthly or annual fee, and I'm not a paid spokesman for the company. This is just something that worked for me, where I have paid to have a subscription to IMDb Pro, and it opens up this whole world of email addresses and phone numbers to the agents and managers of actors and producers, anyone you want to know. I mean, obviously, there's some that are restricted. There's one of the agencies, CAA, it's kind of like trying to get into Fort Knox. It's that hard to get into CAA. So I tend to steer away from actors who have CAA agents, just because they just shut you down right away, basically. They pull up the drawbridge and you fall into the moat and you have to climb your way out. You can't get there. So I stopped banging my head against that wall. I learned that early on, even though I did get on the phone back when I was younger and crazier. I got on the phone with a famous CAA agent for a very famous actress. Was actually talking to him about her appearing in my first feature, and my mind was spinning like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here talking with the agent for Natalie Portman, and he's seriously talking to me about her possibly being in my movie. That obviously didn't happen. But I've had those conversations, and you asked what it's like. It's kind of like going to the dentist and getting a root canal. And then the crown falls out and you got to go back to the dentist, and it's painful and it's tough. But at the end of the day, you have nice teeth. And that's like putting out a movie. Probably a terrible analogy, but that's the first thing I came up with.
Well, but it takes some thick skin to go through that process. And that's, I mean, like entrepreneurship. I mean, it's just not meant for everyone. I mean, not everyone's meant to be a founder, and probably the sooner you find that out, the better off you'll be.
Yes. Right after college, I just started going to these things called bookstores. I don't know if you've heard of them. And just started buying I had every book about screenwriting. I loved movies, so I went to movies to study them. And then I read books about screenwriting and studied them. And I didn't go to film school. I self-taught. And I came out with my first script. And I will never show that to anyone because it is that bad. But I just kept writing scripts and kept coming up with ideas and getting closer to what I thought was a presentable product. And I grew up in West Virginia. So I was watching a movie with a couple friends, and a guy and his girlfriend, and she chose the movie, and it was a period drama called Washington Square. And all of a sudden I go, hey, wait a second. I went to school with her. And they're like, what? And there was an actress in the movie, Jennifer Garner, who I went to high school with. And I just was like, well, I have to put her in a movie now. How am I going to do that? Now she's in LA, and that's like a lifetime away. So I went to a Christmas Eve service at my church, went back home to Charleston, West Virginia. And after the service, who walks across the church to come and give me a hug but Jennifer Garner? And I don't know who was more stunned, me or my brother, who was standing next to me, like, why is this woman giving you a hug? And I said, I saw Washington Square. And she's like, you watched that? Because it's this period drama. Why would I watch that? And we just started talking. I said, I'm going to write a script for you. She said, okay. So she wrote down her address and gave me her address. And I wrote a script for her where I did everything I could think about. Okay, she took ballet as a kid. Okay, I'm going to make her a ballerina. I'm going to make her from Charleston. I'm going to, everything that I could think of that would entice her to be in this movie, I wrote in the script. And the first draft of that script was called One Bride for Seven Brothers. You might have heard of the musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Well, this is One Bride for Seven Brothers because it was a woman who had a lot of guy friends who were in a fraternity. So that was the brothers aspect of it. And she was so nice to them that they all held a candle. I don't know if you guys know what that means anymore, but I had a crush on her, right? So when they got together for the reunion, one of the guys was her boyfriend, and she got tired of waiting for him to propose, so she proposed to him. But if you've ever been in a relationship and you are not quite listening to the person who's talking to you, and then there's this pause, you might reflexively say, okay. So she proposed to her boyfriend, and he said, okay. So she thinks they're engaged. And then she goes to tell all her best guy friends that she's engaged, and they hear it differently and think that she's proposing to them. It got way too complicated with 7 guys, so I cut it down to 4. So obviously I had to change the title. So it turned into The Bride and the Grooms. And so the groom thinks he's a groomsman. The 3 groomsmen thinks that they're the groom. And there are 4 guys at the front of the church jockeying for position at the altar while the bride comes down the aisle. Here comes the bride, who is the groom. And that became my first feature, The Bride and the Grooms. And we shot it in 13 days in 3 states, West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and put it out. I got some friends and family to invest in it, and put it out in theaters in 12 states. And that came out in 2009. And, it was just an amazing experience. And as when I first told my wife that, I want to make a movie, her loving response was, "Who does that? You want to make a movie? Who does that? How are you going to do that? You don't have time. We don't have any money." Da 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 da. Right? But it was just the determination. Obviously Jennifer Garner is not in the movie. I sent it to her, and she respectfully said declined through her representatives. But
did she ask you what's in your wallet?
She did not. But
how long did it take you to write the script?
Wow. Well, first it was One Bride for Seven Brothers, and then I had to rewrite it. But it was a slow process. I was a newlywed with a young child, and we moved to Boston. I had a job at the Boston Globe, so we moved from Ohio to Boston. The Boston Globe did not provide moving expenses or health care coverage because it was a temporary job, but I wanted to work at the Boston Globe. And so when I make up my mind that I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And so we did that. And so while working at the Boston Globe, fortunately, I worked 4 10-hour days, which was a great schedule. You have 3 days off a week. So in my spare time, I wrote the script. And I just decided I'm going to make this movie. And so I hired all these local Ohio actors. It's a really sweet charming romantic comedy, if I do say so. But it was just so rewarding to be in the audience, just hearing the applause at the end, the laughter. It was amazing.
I was going to ask you that question. So you're okay with sitting in a theater and watching your own work?
I am. There are the cringy moments when I'm sweating. I'm like, I could have gotten a different angle, or the sound is not perfect, but it was everything that I could have hoped for. I mean, just for the amount of money and all the things that went into it, it was an amazing experience. So
I bet.
But directing is, it's like worse than a dentist. It's like climbing inside a washing machine and just getting thrown around. It's like, people are hitting you with questions and they want to know all these details, and you have to make your day and you got to do all this, and then you get done and you're like, oh, I want to do that again, right? And so it's a painful experience that when you get done with it, that's the next thing you want to do is make another movie. So I don't know how to explain it.
Are you stuck at your home office, socially distanced coffee shop, or your fancy all bricked out corner office, wondering why no one can see your business and sales are all over the place? Sounds like you need a pro. That's why I developed the Anomaly Academy. Insert clever copy here. Oh, I guess I was supposed to put something else there. Oops. You can grab access to the Anomaly Academy now at ZachMillerSays.com/Anomaly Academy.